If you ever feel out of control around food, you're not alone, and you're in the right place to learn practical, no-nonsense information about why you binge and how to stop. Binge eating does not mean that something is wrong with you. It's a natural but primitive brain response that you can correct. If you're ready for change, sign up for the Brain Over Binge self-paced online course for less than $20 per month. And if you feel you need personalized support, we also offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching. To learn more, go to brainoverbinge.com/subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the show. This is the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. I'm Katherine Hansen, your host, and my goal in this podcast is to share ideas that I hope will help you let go of binge eating. I personally recovered from bulimia in 2005, and since then, it's been my mission to share an alternative perspective on binge eating and recovery. Although this podcast is relatively new, I've maintained a blog since 2010 where I've addressed many topics related to recovery and life after binge eating. You can find my blog at brainoverbinge.com/blog. I mention this because everyone learns differently, and sometimes taking in information in many different ways can lead to new insights. I'm also mentioning the blog today because in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about something that I actually wrote about in a blog post around the holidays in 2016. The topic of this blog post was holiday food talk and how to not react to it. In this post, I discussed the fact that the holidays are a time that so many people seem to be talking about food and weight, whether that's weight gain or their weight loss plans for the new year, or just due to the reality that many holiday gatherings are centered around food, so it's naturally the subject of conversations. This topic is something that does apply all year long, but I feel like this time of year that we're in now, when school is letting out and summer activities are beginning, it's another time that food and weight talk starts to increase. The diet industry sells us the idea that swimsuit season is starting and that we should do something to somehow improve our bodies. So in this episode, I want to share some ideas to try to help you navigate this time, and really any time when you encounter people talking about their weight or diets or their bodies, whether that's in real life or on social media or in entertainment or advertising. Hearing food and weight comments when you're a binge eater or trying to recover can be difficult, and you may be unsure how to manage it. You may find yourself getting very upset or frustrated when you hear others focusing on their weight, when you're trying to do the opposite. You're trying to focus on it less and instead focus on other more important things in your life. So when you hear others talking about their diets, you may be finding yourself thinking that you should diet too, even though you know better. And you fully realize how much trouble it causes and that it leads you to actually eating more than you would if you didn't diet because it leads to binge eating. You may get confused when you hear weight advice and start to doubt yourself and be tempted to think that maybe all you need is a specific diet plan or a specific workout regimen and then all your problems would be solved. But I can assure you this is not what you need and it will not solve all your problems. It will actually hinder any progress you've made in recovery and bring you further away from freedom from food obsessions and binge eating. You want to be able to experience food and weight talk or comments when it happens to come up without it throwing you off track and without it affecting your recovery. I'm going to stop here for a minute and remind you of what you need to do when you have a binge urge, because it's actually related. When you have a thought or feeling encouraging you to binge, what we've talked about in this podcast is you need to be able to experience that thought or feeling that's tempting you to binge without it throwing you off track and without it leading you into the wrong action. And this is very similar to what you want to be able to do when you hear food and weight comments. You can dismiss harmful food talk in much the same way that you dismiss binge urges, or any unhealthy food or weight thought that arises in your own head, and any that you may happen to hear in the external world. Just like you don't give your urges to binge attention or value, you don't have to give that to other people's food comments. It doesn't mean you have to be rude to that person or tell them to stop, or you don't have to run away from the situation. You can simply allow the words to fall flat by politely ignoring the comment or kindly changing the subject. Or if the comment is on social media, by simply not responding or engaging that conversation and continuing on to other conversations that you actually want to engage in. Just because someone else is talking about it doesn't mean you have to get involved. Now, that may sound like a very simple thing to do and a very simple solution, but the tricky part is you have to perform that behavior. You have to dismiss that food talk while you're likely having a lot of reactions and thoughts in your own head. It's very much like walking away from a situation where you typically binge, even though you're having these strong feelings and thoughts driving you toward the food. When you hear or see a food comment, you may automatically have some unwanted, obsessive, anxious, or impulsive thoughts in you, and there's no need for you to be self-critical of that. It's just what your brain is conditioned to do right now, and it can feel very uncomfortable. But that will definitely change as you learn to pay less and less attention to talk of diets and weight, and you learn to mentally walk away. Just try to accept any discomfort you may have with food and weight talk. Feel the thoughts that you have and observe them without judgment, and without judging the other person's comment as well. Notice if you have any thoughts telling you what you should or should not change in your own life based on that other person's comment. Just observe these reactions in the most detached way possible and then allow it to pass. And it will pass. Right now you may be thinking, well, wouldn't it just be easier if I try to avoid this from happening in the first place by avoiding all food and weight and diet talk? Maybe it would make things easier for you right now, but unfortunately, with the world we live in, that's not typically possible. Even if it were possible, it would severely limit your choices of what you could do every day. Also, thinking that you need to avoid it in order to recover or in order to avoid slipping back into dieting really encourages a mindset of powerlessness. When you tell yourself you're not capable of handling food or weight talk, then when it does come up, it will be much more upsetting to you than if you could become confident that you can handle any comment that you hear or read. You can become more confident by practicing dismissing food and weight comments and by remaining detached from your own reactions that come up when you hear those comments. And those reactions that you have and those harmful thoughts that come up in you will start to fade over time. Another tip that's helpful is to have compassion for the other person who made the comment. Most people do mean well, and what they say about food and weight comes just from what's making sense in their own mind at that time. Everyone has their own thoughts and their own belief systems driving whatever they say and do, whether that's about food or weight or anything else. The person's not saying something about food or weight to hurt you. They're simply making a comment or just trying to make conversation, and they don't know that it's harmful to you. In other cases, food and weight talk is actually in the form of advertising, and they're trying to sell you something, trying to sell you a diet, a weight loss product. And that's a bit of a longer conversation than we're going to get in today, but also know that you don't have to be sucked into that either. You can remain detached from advertising and from people trying to sell you a solution that's not actually a solution and something you don't need. Let's just say the food comment came from a friend or family member. How to have compassion for them is to remember that every one of us is sometimes guilty of saying things and not necessarily considering how our words may affect others, and realize that they might not know what you're going through. They don't know how their words affect you. It could be that they've simply gotten into the habit of talking about diets and weight, and you can definitely have compassion for people with harmful habits. Even if the person making the comment is someone who knows you have struggled with an eating disorder, it simply might not have registered in their mind, and that's something you might need to have a conversation with them about at another time. Whatever the case may be, being upset with the person making the comment in that moment is not practical or helpful. Keeping an attitude of compassion for that person keeps your emotions from running high, and it makes it easier to dismiss what they're saying and then to also dismiss your own harmful reactions to what they're saying. In all of this, please remember that the comment or the social media post or magazine ad, it's not about you. Someone saying that they're on a specific diet doesn't then mean that you should be on that specific diet. Someone saying their goal is to lose a certain number of pounds definitely doesn't mean you should have a weight loss goal as well. You are on your own path. Another thing worth mentioning is that a lot of food, weight, and diet talk you hear doesn't even have any basis in reality. This is even more true when we're talking about social media, where people only share the best parts of their lives, typically. What people say and what people actually do are often two different things. The person who you go to lunch with that says she's not eating carbs so that she can wear a bikini may have had bread the day before, or even earlier that day, or she may decide to have some tomorrow. The person who posts a picture of their weight loss drink on Facebook may then eat a dessert right after drinking it and be okay with that, or they may never decide to have that weight loss product again. The reality is that many people tend to say they eat healthier or less than they really do. They aren't lying, they just tend to say what they aspire to, as if it is fact. The same thing goes for weight and diet advertisements, which really only present the best case scenario, and even that best case scenario could only be temporary. Even if someone really is dieting or losing weight exactly like they say they are, it still is not about you and it doesn't have to affect you. You still don't have to react to it. It's simply the path that person is on right now, a path that may change tomorrow or in the future, but it's simply not your path. You can only hope that weight loss or diet path doesn't lead to problems for the other person in the future, but it's not really your job to tell them what to do or not do. You can certainly share concerns that you have if you feel like it's appropriate based on your level of comfort with that person, but your main focus needs to be on continuing to do what you know you need to do to recover and to have freedom from binge eating and harmful restrictive dieting behaviors as well. Although, like I said, there may be some circumstances where you decide to share your concerns about someone else's behavior with them, I do find that in most cases, it's really best to avoid engaging in food and weight talk during recovery. It's better for you to take the focus off of weight and diets, so talking about someone else's diet and weight typically doesn't serve a helpful purpose for you. You don't have to leave the room or be critical of the other person. Just try to kindly bring the subject and the focus back to something other than food. Ask them about their family or their job, their house, their hobbies, or anything that's important to them. What that does is gently sends the message that you aren't really interested in diving deeper into a conversation about weight. The other person probably won't think any further about it and just follow the conversation elsewhere. And while the conversation goes elsewhere, you may still have some automatic feelings of anxiety or some negative thoughts that are moving through you. But if you allow those feelings and thoughts to be present, you'll find that they do subside on their own, without you having to do anything. If you don't give the thoughts a lot of attention or meaning, they'll simply run their course and fade away. You'll find yourself naturally coming back to a less anxious and more peaceful mindset, and you'll be able to engage in the conversation where the other person's words about dieting or weight and your own reactions are no longer bothering you. Then you're free to continue enjoying the other person's company or your time on social media or whatever else you may be doing. The main takeaway about handling food talk is that comments from others or harmful thoughts that arise in your own head are messages that you can choose to take or leave. You don't have to mentally hold on to anything. You get to choose what you give value to. You can simply let the things that don't serve you come and go, and then move on. Comments from others do not hold the power to get you off track in recovery. You can stay connected to what you know is best for you. That's all for this discussion about navigating food and weight talk. If you're new to the show, I want to tell you that you can get a free ebook to learn more about the Brain Over Binge approach to recovery. The link to that free ebook is in the show notes. When you sign up to get that free ebook, you'll also receive a monthly newsletter from me on the first of every month, which contains a blog post and other helpful resources and information. In the June newsletter, there'll be an exciting announcement about an independent study online course that I'm going to be offering very soon. If you've listened to the show before, you know that Cookie Rosenblum and I teach an 8-week course to guide women and men to recovery from binge eating. This includes coaching calls and support as you go through the lessons. Because we know a lot of you have busy schedules and it may be hard to follow the course and to be on the calls at a certain time, we're creating a self-paced online version of this course that we hope will be ready in late June. This will give you the opportunity to go through all the course materials in a way that works in your own life and really make recovery work uniquely for you. It's going to be a great resource, so if you want more information about that, please remember to click the link in the show notes to get that free ebook and also subscribe to the newsletter so that you can stay up to date. I truly appreciate you being here today, and I hope that you've benefited from this discussion. Remember, no matter where you are in recovery, I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the hosts of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey. Need more help? You can find all of our current and upcoming options for support at brainoverbinge.com.